Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Talent, your podcast for all things talent development. I'm your host, Rina Puang Kumutok, a writer, educator, and talent development professional. I'm very excited for this week's episode because our guest is a dear friend who I've looked up to for a long time in terms of career, work ethic, and the willingness to say yes to opportunities that come her way. Please welcome Chat Mayordomo, an HR professional with 14 years of experience who has had a storied career with companies such as Philip Morris, Pepsi, and L'Oreal. She's also currently the talent and learning lead for ING Hubs Philippines, where she drives the learning agenda of the whole company with 4,800 employees. Hi, Cha. Welcome to the podcast, and thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Mina. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for being here. Okay, sige. So I know you very well and I'm familiar with your journey. But for our audience, can you tell us a little bit about your journey toward becoming a learning professional?
I actually started as a generalist and I started in manufacturing and I was an HR assistant then to an HR BP. We were in charge of events, of talent management, of recruitment, of learning. So that's when I started to, invest more time to myself in terms of learning, as in I then trained a performance management system, which was very easy, quote unquote, because it was just step one, click this, step two, a window will pop out. So it was that kind of training that let me start in training. Then later on, I started to do soft skills where I was sent to Bangladesh and India to train internationally. A little bit of teaching in LaSalle as well. My favorite subject, which was Persef. About 5 months, I taught there every Saturday. But I was already considering transferring to the academe. So there was challenges in the office as well in terms of career development, career path, what do I want to do. And I then joined Pepsi University, which was really into learning already. And then transferred to L'Oreal. And then in L'Oreal, that's where I got diversified in terms of, I thought that learning was just training, but there's apparently engagement, there's onboarding, there's corporate events, talent management, a little bit of business partnership. And that's when I realized, oh, training is not just learning, it's not equal to that. So I think that made the journey there exciting. Having been exposed to the APAC team as well. During COVID, I was supposed to go to China, but then I wasn't able to fly because of the lockdown. But I had the learning role as well. Then I got transferred to Singapore for a learning role again. And I'm back. I've been back in the Philippines for 2 years now. 2 years now, and I'm still in a learning role in ING. So very exciting journey for me.
You mentioned that one of your big challenges was choosing this path instead of, let's say, the academe or other areas of HR. Could you share with us your philosophy behind why you chose learning?
Sure. So my talent philosophy always start with a purpose. What's your why? So at an early age, my career didn't start with a why. So it was more of what and how much I earn, how do I do this, how do I deliver. Knowing my why came in 3 years after I was working, and there was a program in my first company, and we had a specific topic wherein we had to know our values. And it was like, what are my values? What's my why? So that's when I realized I want this philosophy to really be the foundation of my career starting then on.
Right, I definitely agree. If you have your why, you can withstand any how or any what or when. And I guess that leads me to my question about your whats. I'm sure it wasn't easy to build learning cultures, even in the very established companies that you worked for. Can you tell us a bit more about those challenges on both an individual and organizational level?
So for individuals, it's really the mindset, as in when employees have a fixed mindset, they're passive learners, they compare their trainings to another colleague. That's when you get challenged in a sense of what do you really want? No, what do you really need? Because even if I offer you trainings, you don't attend it because of time, and that's another challenge because time, they're busy. So they want training, but they don't have the time to attend these trainings. Another challenge for individuals is not basing the trainings on learning needs analysis. So if you just guess na, what does this person need? Maybe it's this one, maybe it's that one. For organizations, it, Rina, I know you know this is a 70-20-10.
For our audience, by the way, 70-20-10 is a learning model which states that 70% of learning comes from experiences, assignments, 20% comes from developmental relationships, and only 10% comes from actual training interventions. Anyway, sorry, Cha, go ahead.
Right? And the 20% is the smallest cut of the pie, but it's one with the most investment in terms of money, no? So, organizations sometimes they deprioritize training in the sense that they forget maybe that investing in employees development is actually investing in the organization. And when you invest to your employees, you actually get an ROI. No, most of the time you get your ROI. Second is when organizations think that one size fits all, as in, hindi, isang training lang yan, 'di ba? And then okay na yan sa lahat. It's not like that. Learning is personal and very specific to individuals. Lastly, having someone in a learning role who doesn't have capability and strategic mindset on how to start a building culture, start to build a learning culture is also a challenge because you put someone in a role or in a position that's of influence but is not able to do that strategically, then that's a big headache or a challenge to really build that culture because the one who's supposed to drive that culture isn't capable enough to do so. So that could be a challenge as well.
Wow. Yeah, and I think you're definitely right in terms of customization and the investment. Less experienced companies, maybe, they'll think that training is a cost. But what they don't see is that sooner or later, anyway, people will move on. So if you don't train people properly, the ones that will stay will also be, incompetent.
I agree. I agree. And I've had a specific experience wherein the company didn't want to really invest a big investment, no, and the challenge there was being resourceful, so they leave it to the team to be resourceful, but sometimes there's a huge gap that you need to fill in, I mean, but then the investment isn't just enough. So companies should really invest in people. I mean, it sounds cliche, but it's really true coming from a learning professional like us, no? Yeah.
Super, super true. And at the end of the day, people extend not just in learning or training, but they're your branding, they're the experience of the customer with the company. Thank you for that, Cha. I feel like getting buy-in is always the number one priority talaga for learning. Now let's move on a little bit to talking about our generation. So maybe our viewers would be interested to know that we went to college together.
A few years ago. A few years ago.
Tama, mga mga 2 years ago lang. Just kidding. But yeah, so mostly I think for our batchmates or our mga kasabayan, they've also explored different fields. So I wanted to ask you, when it comes to like mid-millennials like us or maybe even Gen Zs who are trying to create like a career in learning, what advice do you have for them?
Yep. So I say, Wina, go for it. If you have the passion for learning, for making an impact, influencing, and building something out of nothing, then you might just find learning as a new space for you to discover. So it's actually quite generic, but I'm a believer of learning on the fly. No? So I'm sure that if you were passionate about learning and development, you will learn it however you want it. So by reading, if you're a theorist, by attending conferences, by mentoring, learning by doing, you will eventually learn the core and foundations of learning and development. And that's where you start to build. No, so it's not too late, even if we're mid-millennials and you have that passion and capability to learn the L&D field, why not? Just go for it.
I love that. And yes, that goes back to what you said then earlier about the growth mindset, right? We hear it so much, but it's really true.
True, it's true. It's funny because just to share, Rina, I used to train growth mindset in Singapore, and the way that they described it during that training is, you're like a baby. Uh, when you learn as an adult, when you tend to learn as an adult, it's fixed mindset kasi you know how to walk na eh. But when it's growth mindset, kung madapa yung baby, tatayo. 'Di ba? So that's growth mindset. Not you cannot walk yet. So you stand up and walk again. But if you're an adult na and you know you unfortunately sometimes us as an adult 'di ba parang I know this na eh, ito na yun eh, 'di ba? Then that's the time we stop learning really because we just get stuck on our old ways.
Oh, that's so nice. So, yan ang advice natin sa mga nakikinig. Be a baby.
It's the key takeaway for today. Okay.
Understand what you mean because sometimes it's like you get ahead of yourself. Like, wala pa nga. You're saying na you can't do it or you're saying na I'm not this kind of person or maybe you're saying like mali yung tinuturo, that kind of thing. So, being a baby gives us that open-mindedness. Thank you again, Chap, for joining us today. Before we go, would you like to tell people where they can find you online and maybe if you have any initiatives that you want to share with us?
Sure. So online, I'm on LinkedIn. So I'm Carmina Mayordomo on LinkedIn. So just search. We have internal activations in the office. So we actually just had our learning week last month, Mina, and we will have a talent and capability week in ING this coming week. So it's gonna be a busy week for us, and we have an estimated 150 trainings this year. So that itself is like that whole calendar already for us, no? So it's gonna be exciting and fulfilling or for sure.
That sounds amazing! Congratulations and super kudos to you and your team at ING for really pushing the envelope in terms of learning and development. Thank you also to our audience for joining us. You can leave comments in the Q&A section of Spotify or in the comment section of YouTube. Join us again next week as we talk to attorney Dexter Diwas, a Gallup certified strengths coach who will tell us a little bit more about his career journey in the realm of talent development. This has been your host, Wina Puang Kumutok. You can find me at Wina_wonders on Instagram, and you can listen to Let's Talk Talent on YouTube and Spotify.